We are continuing on tonight with more of our nostalgic deep dives. As you know, we've moved from, our adult animation such as that, like Adult Swim, um, Toonami, more of the actual block programming versus like the actual individual shows. So now we're going down the line more so of like just deep dives of those actual shows now. We did most of the adult, like some of the adult animations. We dived into some sitcoms and stuff, so we still have some of those to check through. Checking some horror shows, and we just dived into a few early cartoons. So I think we're gonna continue on that wave, and dive into one of like the more OG cartoons. Um, One, at least for me, that I definitely like. This is what I like grew up on for sure. Like the Merry Melodies, Looney Tunes, all that. So we're gonna be checking that out today. So first ones we're gonna take a look at. We got to go to the tried and true Batman the Animated Series. And so we have here with Variant Comics history of Batman the Animated Series. So let's get a little breakdown.
Happy Batman Day, my comic comrades. There are many things we could talk about to celebrate the Cape Crusader, but this year also marks the 30th anniversary of Batman the Animated Series, which is one of my favorite franchises in all of geekdom and arguably the best superhero or comic book animated series of all time. So with this perfect storm of bat-tasticness, there was only one reasonable option for Batman Day 2022, and that is to run through the glorious history of Batman the Animated Series. Everyone here at Planet Variant is a massive fan of B-Tides, but for me personally, it holds a special place in my nerdy heart. So I'm really gonna have fun with this episode today. Now let's see how this masterpiece was created. First, I want to say this history of episode is going to be way different from our character history of episodes, as this is a TV series. But don't worry, we're going to run through all of the good stuff. Batman the Animated Series was created by Bruce Timm and Eric Radomski and produced by Warner Brothers Animation, first airing on Fox Kids on September 5th, 1992. And
oh my God, hold on, Fox Kids.
And produced by Warner Brothers Animation, first airing on Fox.
Yo, Fox Kids. Let's see what we have here. Wallace and Gromit, Magic School Bus. I think that's Winx Club. I'm not sure what that is. Y'all look familiar, but I don't know. The Tick, Spider-Man. Oh my God, I don't remember. I think that's Transformers. I have no clue. Oh, Bill and Ted, what is that one? It's the one with Keanu Reeves, and they do the time traveling. X-Men. Oh my God, I know this one. I don't remember. Alvin and the Chipmunks. The Baby Looney Tunes, Digimon at the bottom. The Power Rangers, all in red. Ugh. Donkey Kong. Sam and Max. Animaniacs, Tasmanian Devil. I can't see. Oh my God, what was this weird like stop motion? She was like made out of paper or something.
Fox Kids on September 5th, 1992, and running until September 15th, 1995, with a grand total of 85 episodes over 2 seasons. After the first 2 seasons, the remaining 20 episodes went under the new banner of The Adventures of Batman and Robin, which gave us a new opening title sequence and obviously included a lot of Robin. TAS, which is what fans call Batman the Animated Series, was the first show in the continuity of the DC Animated Universe, or the DCAU for short. Other shows in this continuity are the new Batman Adventures, Superman the Animated Series, Batman Beyond, Static Shock, Justice League, Justice League Unlimited, and the seemingly always forgotten Zeta Project.
The Zeta Project? Damn, well, that's forgotten by me. Hold up. Put that on the list. What?
There's also several animated films in this continuity. First and foremost, Batman Mask of the Phantasm, which I still think is the greatest Batman movie of all time, live action or otherwise. And then there's also Batman Mr. Freeze Sub-Zero, Batman Beyond Return of the Joker, which is another one of the greatest Batman films of all time,
Amazing.
Batman Mystery of the Batwoman, Batman and Harley Quinn, and Justice League versus the Fatal Five. What I'm saying is the success of Batman the Animated Series spawned a bunch of spin-off shows, and to date has given us the best DC shared universe outside of comics. And speaking of, the DCAU also have their own comic book lines, which we'll get into a little later. For now, let's talk about the creation of Batman the Animated Series with our origin segment. As I've said already and probably will keep saying throughout, Batman the Animated Series is one of the best things to ever happen to Batman and the world of comic books and just superheroes in general. That is not an opinion. It is a fact, because
this was that early Saturday morning cartoon that you had to keep in. Like, this Batman series, oh my god, that opening was so fire. The silence, like just the color and everything, it got you hyped for like, oh yeah, no, I'm about to be watching the fire shit. And then to eventually be followed up with the Batman Beyond, where they bring in a whole different Batman. Like, if they did that today, I feel like, and like first introduce a character like that, and people would be up in arms like, who the fuck is this? This is not my Batman, blah blah blah. Bruh, it was so hype back then.
Whether you love it or hate it, the impact it had on Batman and comics overall is unprecedented. But if you hate it, the hell's wrong with you? Either way, TAS went on to win 4 Emmy Awards, and that's for good reason. But how did this iconic series get created? Well, it was partially inspired by Tim Burton's 1989 Batman film starring the one and only Michael Keaton. The success of that film brought Batman back into the mainstream in a way it never was before, giving us a dark and gritty Batman as opposed to the campy yet still fan-loved 66 Adam West Batman. Of course, Warner Brothers at the time realized they needed to capitalize off the new popularity, as pretty much everyone loved Batman. Enter Bruce Timm and Eric Radomski, who started developing an animated Batman series. They pulled inspiration from Tim Burton's otherworldly timelessness, incorporating the now iconic features of the series, like black and white title cards, 40s inspired fashion, police blimps, vintage color scheme, and noir style all over the place. The series opening sequence is a perfect example of everything I just said and sums up the entirety of the series perfectly. It sets the tone and vibe with the epic opening theme song, which was a variation of Danny Elfman's Batman theme for the Tim Burton movies. Then once the series turned into the adventures of Batman and Robin, composer Shirley Walker created a new theme that was very similar to Danny Elfman's and was amazing in its own right. But come on, we all know the original theme Danny Elfman made for the series could never be matched. One of the many reasons TAS stood out so much and still resonates with the new generation is that it was a kid's series that didn't talk down to its audience. In fact, the series was constantly pushing the boundaries of what a kid's series could be, making it much more adult-oriented than any other superhero cartoon of its time. For instance, in Robin's Reckoning Part 1, where we get his origin, they alluded to Grayson's parents dying in a way I think hits harder than actually seeing them die. We see a silhouette of them swinging on the trapeze as they swing out of frame, but when the trapeze rope swings back, we see it's broken with his parents no longer there, telling us it snapped and they fell to their death, which is crazy. You gotta remember, for being a Saturday morning cartoon or weekday after school kid show, it's pretty insane that they got away with that.
I mean, that's the whole thing. Like, that's the beautiful part about, like, yeah, sure, symbolism, but I feel like the whole concept back then was like to not show violent things in nature, obviously to not disturb kids, but then also nothing that they can like try to replicate, whatever. So the whole less is more concept just always works better in writing in general, just because it shows that you respect your audience to, like, you know, get the concept. I mean, not that it's, you know, heavy to get, but also in the context that you can like hide certain meanings without having to directly explain it or outrightly say it, so you just don't know. It's left up to the thought or imagination of you putting it together with like common sense, whatever, so that way younger kids that, you know, don't really need to be seeing certain things like that all the time don't have to be exposed to it directly.
The series was also the first cartoon in years to show people using guns and firearms that weren't futuristic lasers. They even showed Commissioner Gordon get shot in the series in episode 49. Again, no one was showing actual characters in kids cartoons getting shot at the time. I don't watch many modern kid cartoons, but I feel like it's still not a thing, but TAS was pushing those boundaries. Batman actually punched and kicked bad guys in the show, even leading to the characters bleeding, like Batman having blood coming out of his mouth, which was a level of violence that kids animation just didn't have at the time. Then you just have the overall look of the show. It's a very dark show, which was intentional because it's about Batman, who's a dark character that mainly works at night and in the shadows. So to give it that very unique dark style, a bunch of the series' backgrounds were actually painted and drawn on black paper. That gave it its now iconic film noir imagery, along with its Art Deco designs and overall very dark color scheme. Altogether, those things earned it the nickname Dark Deco by the series producers. Not shockingly, Bruce Timm and Eric Radomski got a bunch of pushback from the studio executives saying they didn't know if it was going to work. They thought it was a little too dark, but once they saw the pilot pilot episode, Bruce Timm is quoted saying, "It got a lot of people off our backs." Essentially,
Yeah.
one studio executive saw their vision, they were like,
amazing.
"Oh, okay, yeah, you're right, it works." Gotta love those suits who think just because they're the money, they know better. As for the voice cast of Batman the Animated Series, it was top notch. We have the man who would become known as Batman himself, Kevin Conroy, voicing Bruce Wayne/Batman, Lauren Lester voicing Dick Grayson/Robin, Bob Hastings as Jim Gordon, Melissa Gilbert as Batgirl, and the list goes on for days. As for villains, you have the iconic Mark Hamill as the Joker, Arlene Sorkin as Harley Quinn, Ron Perlman as Clayface, Paul Williams as the Penguin, Henry Silva as Bane, and the list goes on and on again. We can make a whole episode just on the awesome voice cast of TAS. Like I said earlier, the first 85 episodes of this series are under the banner Batman the Animated Series, but the last 20 episodes were under the banner of The Adventures of Batman and Robin. The series would later get revived again under the title of The New Batman Adventures, where they gave all the characters epic new sleek redesigns. Even the Batmobile was no exception, as the Dark Knight got a brand new set of wheels. Even though the look and designs of Batman the Animated Series will always hold that nostalgia for me and be my favorite, I gotta say the new Batman Adventure redesigns are pretty dang sleek. As a kid, I liked them even more, but now as an adult, the nostalgia kicks in and I'm all about the OG Batsuit. And speaking of classic versus modern Batman, I've also been a huge fan of what Zack Snyder did with his version of Batman. And with the release of the Snyder Cut of the Justice League, we got to see Snyder's true vision for his Joker. And the awesome people at Weta Workshop captured just how terrifying he turned out to be with their limited edition 1/4 scale statue, which they were kind enough to send over to us. The sculpt on this limited edition polystone statue by master clay artist Daniel Cockersell is just ridiculously lifelike. It portrays the Joker in Snyder's Apocalypse Nightmare scene, and they even worked with Zack Snyder himself to get it exactly right. It's pretty nuts. The piece comes with swappable Batman cowl, crowbar, and gun, and even includes a detachable Token of Truce Joker card made with real paper. You better believe this bad boy will be finding a home on the variant set. But Weta Workshop produces a ton of other great collectibles as well, like this polystone 1/6 scale Deep the Gelfling statue based on Jim Henson's Dark Crystal. This statue was digitally sculpted by veteran Weta Workshop artist Steven Saunders, using scans of the original puppet that was seen on screen. One of the coolest aspects of this collectible are the translucent resin wings that give it such a dynamic feel. So dope. Not to mention the base also features amazing designs from the world of Dark Crystal. Both of these statues are freaking awesome and available on Weta's website right now. You really need to check them out for yourself. Just click our link in the description to order one or both. And as a reminder, the Joker statue is limited to sleep on it. So story arcs will obviously be a little different than our normal history of episodes, so we'll just talk about some of the greatest episodes from Batman the Animated Series along with its films, and even run down a list of Batman the Animated Series comic titles that tie into the continuity of the greater DCAU. Now I feel like there's no wrong choice for great Batman the Animated Series episodes, as pretty much all of them are great, but like anything, there's obviously episodes and characters that stand out more than others. Two-Face, being the iconic villain that he is, was one of those characters who got a two-part origin story that broke down the character to perfection in the episode simply titled Two-Face Parts 1 and 2. You also have another staple of the series, the episode Beware the Grey Ghost, where we learned of Bruce's childhood hero, a TV superhero called Grey Ghost. It's an excellent and iconic episode where we get to see Bruce fanboy over and even work alongside his childhood hero. Overall, there's a reason why it's a fan favorite episode. Over the Edge is another classic story from Batman the Animated Series where the entire story took place in a dream. But at the time, I didn't know it was a dream and I was like, what the heck is happening? Only for them to get me at the end of the episode. Then you have Joker's Favor, which is one of the best Joker episodes in my opinion. And then you have The Man Who Killed Batman, which follows this average Joe who supposedly killed Batman, but of course he didn't, and this grabs the attention of the Joker, which gets him into a whole mess. Next, you have Mad Love, which is technically part of the new Batman Adventure series, but it all kind of still falls under Batman the Animated Series, so I'm counting it. It gives us the origin of Harley Quinn, which is one of my favorite origin stories. And then, of course, you have the classic Heart of Ice episode written by Paul Dini and directed by Bruce Timm, which gave us the modern origin of Mr. Freeze. This episode turned Victor Freeze into a sympathetic character instead of your generic villain. And the last one I'll mention is Almost Got Him, where a bunch of Batman's rogues gallery sit around a poker table and tell stories of how they almost defeated Batman, only for the episode to end with a twist. Actually, no, I gotta mention one more, and that is Christmas with the Joker. I watch it every year on Christmas Eve with my entire family. It is brilliant. Anyway, one of the things that made this story so good for Batman the Animated Series was Batman's villains and how well they were written. I would say that no other form of media has portrayed Batman's rogues gallery as good as Batman the Animated Series. I would even go as far to say Batman's villains in this series are even better than a lot of Batman's comics. You know, the source material itself, it really is that good. Fan writers from the series, Paul Dini and Alan Burnett, absolutely killed it with their retellings of Batman's rogues gallery. It's what made the show stand out, with the villains being so diverse and interesting. It was all just so well written and so well paced, which is extremely difficult to do with 22 minutes to tell a complete story. And they knocked it out of the park 9 times out of 10. But besides actual episodes, there are several films connected to Batman the Animated Series, one of which is Batman Mask of the Phantasm. We did a whole episode breaking down Batman Mask of the Phantasm, which you could watch right here. I'm sure all of you are aware of it, as it's one of the most popular things for Batman ever. But besides that, you also have Batman Mr. Freeze Sub-Zero. I really enjoyed that film, highly recommend you watch it if you haven't already. It's a fantastic Mr. Freeze story where yet again he's just trying to bring his wife back to life, and it's kind of heartbreaking. Then you have my second favorite Batman the Animated Series related film, which would be Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker. This film gives us old man Bruce Wayne within the DCAU continuity, and obviously Terry McGinnis Batman Beyond, with Mark Hamill reprising his role as the Joker, returning all these years in the future and facing off against Batman Beyond. It's fantastic. If you haven't watched it yet, what the heck are you doing with your life? We might even do a Batman Beyond Return of the Joker breakdown episode like we did for Mask of the Phantasm, because it's that good. You also have Batman Mystery of the Batwoman, another great story in the Batman animated series continuity that shows a mysterious new Batwoman who's arrived in Gotham. Batman is trying to figure out what the heck she wants because she claims to be fighting for justice, but she's breaking his one rule of never killing people. Then you have newer entries like the 2017 Batman and Harley Quinn animated film, and lastly Justice League versus the Fatal Five, which I did enjoy. But now let's briefly run down the comic book continuity for Batman the Animated Series and the DCAU, because those issues expanded the animated universe a lot. First, we have the Batman Adventures Volume 1, which ran for 36 issues, 2 annuals and 3 specials. I actually have every single issue, annual, and special from this run thanks to my good bud Comic Tom. Head over to his channel Comic Tom 101 if you haven't already and subscribe. But you also have the Batman and Robin Adventures, which ran for 25 issues and 2 annuals, the Batman Adventures The Lost Years, which ran for 5 issues, Batman Gotham Adventures, which ran for 60 issues, a really good series that I highly recommend, and the Batman Adventures Volume 2, which ran for 17 issues. But there's also Harley Quinn and Batman, which ran for 5 issues, Batman and Harley Quinn, which ran for 7 issues, and the more recent Batman The Adventures Continue 7-issue digital miniseries, as well as Batman The Adventures Continue Season 2, which was another 7-issue miniseries that featured Batman villains like the Court of Owls. A slightly different series is the Batman Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 6-issue crossover series from 2016, which if you haven't checked that out, I highly recommend it. There's a ton more within the DC animated universe, but I just gave you what specifically pertains to Bruce Wayne Batman. Although the Batman Beyond DCAU comics are really good, just wanted to throw that in there because Batman Beyond. I do want to finish out this episode though by talking about several of the things Batman the Animated Series created that are now staples to the Batman mythos. First and foremost, you obviously have Harley Quinn. She was created for Batman the Animated Series by Bruce Timm and Paul Dini and is now one of the most popular characters not just for DC Comics, but all of comics. Nora Freeze, Mr. Freeze's wife, was also created for Batman the Animated Series along with his modern origin that the comic books and everything else now use, which I mentioned earlier. Another character TAS is responsible for creating is Renee Montoya, who actually just made her live action debut in Birds of Prey a few years ago, played by my fellow Puerto Rican, Rosie Perez. Then there's a character Lockup, a former security guard who takes things to the extreme and now captures and takes care of criminals with extreme prejudice. And of course, there's Grey Ghost, who has made brief cameos in the main DC continuity. Same for Red Claw, who's appeared in the main continuity and Catwoman's solo title. And besides Harley Quinn, the most notable character created for TAS that made his or her way into main continuity for DC Comics is the Phantasm, who most recently was used for Tom King's Batman and Catwoman run. I was over the moon for this because I'm a massive Phantasm fan. So when she was brought into the main continuity, I was thrilled. But there you have it, friends, our history of Batman the Animated Series, one of the best interpretations of Batman and his catalog of characters, and one of the best things to happen to the world of comic books.
Like, this show has some of the best written episodes, like some of the storyline, not even some of, like a lot, if not most of the storylines with the villains and plot and everything. Like they said, for them to introduce certain characters and plot lines that pretty much changed the continuity of certain characters, like literally introducing Harley Quinn into it, and now she is a staple of Batman and Joker origins and come up and everything. Like she is, now she has her own shows and spin-offs and everything, and like she started in the cartoon and everything. It's insane.
In general. Normally we would give powers and abilities and reading recommendations at this point of the history of episode, but that doesn't really apply to this history of a show. So instead, just watch a show, read the comics, and you won't be disappointed. First up for the week of September 14th.
Okay. No, that was cool. That what's the history of the Batman animated series? Not a surprise there, like I said, that yeah, so much of it I didn't, I mean I think I did know that it had won like a couple awards and everything, but they said 4 Emmys. Not a surprise there. Like I said, the writing team was a phenomenal, the voice acting team was phenomenal, the art team, the design, like hold on, yeah, we gotta pull up that. Like, imagine being a kid and witnessing this. Hey yo, y'all gonna stop playing my boy's name. That is the Batman. Oh my god. Alright, so that was the Batman the Animated Series. You know, and while we're here, YouTube back. Probably be in the same video. I just wanted to stop and start the recording in just in case something happens. But yep, we're going to be diving right back in with continue on with those start deep dives. We just watched the Batman the Animated Series breakdown, so we're going to take a look at Batman Beyond now, the classic nobody wanted, an IGN inside story. Let's take a look. Again, before we dive in, like I said about Batman the Animated Series, these two are some of the best media that Batman has ever had. Like, they did Batman so well, especially with this one, and just pulling in like the 90s grudge theme and style and everything is, oh my god. Character design, animation style, music, plot, story, everything just so 10 out of 10 out of 10 out of 10. Oh my god. And for it to be a whole new Batman as well, like I don't think people understand like how, especially in today's age, how they've made, like, if any type of change they do to a character, or they make add a new character to something that people aren't used to or isn't or typically in that series or whatnot, people are at arms. So for them to change Batman and make the main character of a Batman series not Bruce Wayne, and not even one of the Robins at that, insane. And for it to be an instant classic at that, beautiful. So let's take a look here. Batman Beyond, the classic nobody wanted.
It's difficult to overstate the legacy of Batman Beyond.
There's a real sense of family between the audience and these characters.
He was just a kid. Terry was a kid. I think for a whole new generation, it made people go, wait, I can be Batman.
With a type of sustained enthusiasm from fans it's enjoyed for the last 2 decades, a Batman of the future seems like an idea everybody can get behind. But the story of Batman in the Neo-Gotham of 2039? Nobody actually wanted to do it.
How do you follow up the original Batman?
Kind of tried to push it off. You know, there are no bad ideas, but the network always seems to pick one.
The network, in this case, was the WB, and they had one more idea. Make it a teenage Batman in the future.
You're just a guy.
So how did a network exec's unwanted idea turn into a beloved animated series with its own unique legacy? How did Batman Beyond's producers create something from such a specific ask that not only lived up—
I'm sorry, what did that kid expect it to be? I mean, even if it was a woman, like, what would he have been if he wasn't a person, just a person in general?
To the established
I guess it's the same world where Superman exists, but he also just looks like a guy. But, you know, whoa.
Canon, but also expanded and enriched it. This is the inside story about finding brilliance out of necessity, about a classic Batman that nobody wanted.
One of the best Batman movies.
From the best-selling, critically acclaimed comics to the live-action and animated television shows to the blockbuster movies. Okay, maybe not all the movies. The Caped Crusader has found its audience no matter the decade or the medium. If you'll excuse the obvious pun, Bruce Wayne has a pretty good batting average. By the late 1990s, Batman was king of the animated hill. On the heels of Batman the Animated Series, executive producers Bruce Timm and Paul Dini followed up the genre-defining hit with the new Batman adventures, refining the distinctive animation style of Batman the Animated Series that became known as Dark Deco. This new series focused more on the Bat family than on Bruce Wayne and his lonely crusade. Airing on what was then known as the Kids WB, The New Adventures of Batman was a hit. Fans loved it, the ratings were strong, and the addition of an entire Bat family to model action figures from made the toy companies happy. But after barely a year on the air, New Adventures would have its plug pulled.
I'm not sure I can adequately describe it. It was surreal and disappointing and shocking, and it had the rug pulled out from under us. It was just like, oh, crap, seriously?
Why was the decision made? Well, you can at least partially blame Dawson.
Dawson's Creek?
At the time, the WB network was Teen Central. Thanks to shows like Dawson's Creek, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and Felicity, the network had a stranglehold on...
Is that why we got Smallville? They canceled the animated series to try to compete with like a Dawson's Creek and made a drama-led live-action show instead. Don't get me wrong, I do fuck with Smallville, but if this got in the way of the animated series, no, oh no. Have an internal crisis
on younger viewers. So they told the Batman production team they wanted a new Batman cartoon for the kids' WB with a teenaged Caped Crusader.
I don't know if this was like toy line related or what, but I think Buffy was doing really well for them, so I think they wanted a version of Batman similar to Buffy.
The producers all just knew that teenage Batman would be a nightmare because it's well established in comics canon that teenage Bruce Wayne had not yet become the Dark Knight, and it didn't fit into the mythology of the animated universe they had spent the 90s building. And so, in a meeting with WB executives, Bruce Timm turned to an idea born of desperation.
So I said, so if there was some way that we could come up with a teenage Batman show that was still in continuity, that still built off of the shows that we'd already done, the only way to do that is to go forward into the future and introduce a new character, some Batman.
If the idea was a desperate Hail Mary, fortunately, WB network executive Jamie Kellner was there to catch it.
Jamie's reaction was, it was kind of odd. I remember this specifically. He said, yeah, so it's like the new generation of samurai passing his sword on to his protege. And I thought, well, I don't really know what that's about, but yeah, like that.
Yeah.
He said, great, let's do that. But you got a green light. He said, I want this show for next fall. And we're just like, what?
Next
in Hollywood,
fall.
getting a green light is usually cause for celebration, and there's no industry where being your own champion is more necessary. So the first hurdle to clear was tall and glaring. The producers weren't sold on their own pitch.
They're like, oh, I don't want to do this stupid show. I don't want to do teenage Batman, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I want to keep doing the show we're doing, even though we knew that was pretty much a lost cause. And so we just kind of walked away grumbling, not really very enthusiastic about it.
And I remember Bruce coming back from the meeting and telling me about it. And I said, that sounds cool. We should do it. And I think Bruce said he wasn't sure about the idea until he pitched it to me.
He said, yeah, futuristic show, teenage Batman, we can kind of do all that Spider-Man stuff, the torture hero, he's got to balance his schoolwork and his love life and being a superhero. We can totally come up with our own stylish version of futuristic Gotham. And it's like, yeah, I think it would be fun. And I kind of like, well, yeah, you're just kind of talking me into it.
Tim was slowly
He's
coming
talking
around
you
to
into
the
it.
idea
You were
of the
pitching the
series,
idea.
but an enormous problem still remained. Getting a show from pitch to production in a matter of months is unheard of in animated television. In short, it was time to start panicking. Part of Bruce Timm's initial hesitance with the request from the WB was the fear of losing an established and popular continuity. A brand new show and a brand new branch of the legacy was a perilous way to proceed, something that was not lost on every member of the crew, including voice director Andrea Romano.
We were creating a series that was not based on established material, whereas Batman was, Superman was, Teen Titans even was, based on existing material. This was something that we were kind of going to create ourselves.
So, in some respects, out of a desire to not be vilified by Bat fandom, the team had to be sure the series was tied to their canon, and one actor was able to do that by himself. Casting Kevin Conroy as Old Man Bruce was a no-brainer. Using the definitive voice of the Dark Knight confirmed Batman Beyond's place in the same continuity as Batman the Animated Series, but, like everybody else, Conroy took a little convincing.
They said, well, we want to do a new Batman show. And I thought, oh, great. This is great, another show.
Right.
I said, but you're not going to be Batman. I said,
you're Batman, but
that doesn't sound so good.
While Conroy rooted that series in their established canon, the network mandate for a fresh and futuristic take on the Dark Knight still needed addressing.
We were still using the same Bruce Wayne just as a much older character. So there had to be some similarities and yet some differences.
There was a veritable stampede of young Hollywood stars looking to nab the role of Terry McGinnis, but it was Will Friedle, an actor from ABC's TGIF sitcom Boy Meets World, that quickly got everyone's attention.
To be honest with you, I think the thing that I did other people might not have done, which might have been one of the things that gave me a little bit of a leg up on getting the role, which was I loved the Michael Keaton Batmans. You know, this was obviously pre-Christian Bale. So in the Michael Keaton Batmans, I thought he really paid respect to the fact that Batman and Bruce Wayne were two very different characters. Distinctly remember doing half of the audition as Terry and then half deepening the voice and doing it as Batman.
To Conroy, Bruce's decision to permanently turn the suit over to someone else and accept that his hero days are over is one of the triumphs of Batman Beyond, and an aspect of Bruce Wayne that has rarely been portrayed in the mythos.
That
Batman
shows
voice
extraordinary
and his
growth on Bruce Wayne's part.
Oddly, it becomes the most fulfilling relationship he's ever had, is the one he has
With Terry McGinnis. It's like a son. It's that fulfillment that a parent has with a child.
But even with Conroy sold and the all-important futuristic teenage Batman cast, Bruce Timm faced yet another issue. The writers were still struggling to wrap their heads around the initial pitch. Writers had trouble scripting a Batman show Bruce Wayne as Batman.
Literally, most of the shows, literally all their pitches were about Bruce Wayne. And it was just like, you know what? I love old man Bruce Wayne. I think he's fascinating and fun because he's ancient and he's cranky and he's more of a bastard than he ever was. But he's not the star of our show.
Right.
The bedrock of the show was Terry McGinnis. And so it wasn't Bruce Wayne. If you look at it, the heart of that show is Terry McGinnis.
Of course.
Bruce Wayne is kind of along for the ride.
All of our freelance writers, nobody understood.
It's nice to have Batman there.
Nobody could get it. So we literally had to break like all of the stories in-house.
Ultimately, they did get help from writer Stan Berkowitz, a member of the DC animated family that had moved to live-action drama after his Emmy-winning time on Superman. He returned to script the back half of the two-part series premiere of Batman Beyond, titled Rebirth, which aired in primetime on January 10, 1999, and he made it clear he had no intention of writing Terry as just another young Bruce Wayne.
It would be impossible for me to imagine a character, a teenager that dark, that damaged. The whole point of doing the series was to do one, have a hero who was younger and could appeal to younger people. Well,
sure.
you make him someone who thinks he knows a lot, and he's got the raw material. No, you didn't know that much, and you made a mistake here, you made a mistake there, but you're learning.
While the writing team sorted out the foundation of the show, the production and design team was dealing with problems of their own. All they had to do was create a whole new world, complete with a brand new group of villains for a show they had to start making right now.
Mind you, it had to be due. It was due for the fall, and they had to somewhat go off the continuity of the original show while making it futuristic enough to, be its own thing. Neo Gotham.
As the sprint to deliver the hastily pitched and approved show on an unheard-of schedule began, there was still work left to be done on the new Batman Adventures and Superman the Animated Series.
It's kind of all a blur to me because at one point we were finishing Superman, finishing Batman, and doing Batman Beyond at the same time.
We were like on a machine with that other show, and they basically said, we have to produce a whole new show, and also it's set in the future, so none of the stock designs that we use on Superman and Batman will apply.
We just had to generate a lot of artwork really, really quickly. We would kind of go into a meeting and we would sort of throw out a bunch of drawings and then we would start shaping what the show was.
As the two main characters,
cool.
Terry and Bruce, were the backbone of the show, but a Batman is only as good as his rogues gallery. Batman Beyond needed bad guys. Time was short, and Tim was adamant about not simply recycling the classic villains. Once again, what seemed like a problem turned out to be a huge opportunity for the show's staff, who soon set out to create an entirely new roster of baddies.
And Bruce told all the artists who could do it, into a room and said, we need villains. He basically just threw it out there. Basically developed the show in a room. And we were just throwing out ideas out there and literally just drawing.
That frenzied method, sketch first, concept later, led to the creation of memorable foes like Ink and Shriek.
At least in one case that I know, that the noise guy Shriek. Basically, Glenn drew the picture, and then I was just handed the picture and Alan said, "Here, Glenn just did this. It has something to do with sound. Figure out something."
I wanted this show to be Terry's show. I didn't want Terry necessarily to be fighting
that chaotic, creative melting pot of just like putting creators in a room and just like, all right, y'all just start making shit, and then just compiling everything together, using everybody's different talents together, and be like, all right, well, this is what he did over here. It's supposed to be sound based. What you get? That's hilarious.
all of Bruce's villains. I didn't think that was interesting.
More than just updating the villains for the show's new Dark Knight, Batman Beyond modernized the Batman mythos thematically as well, exploring the dark side of technology and science's impact on society. And there's no better place to showcase a sweeping stylistic shift than a show's title sequence, and Batman Beyond's was a stunner. Putting the series' cyberpunk influences front and center, the titles are a breathtaking montage of multimedia images designed by the late great cartoonist Darwin Cook.
Darwin assembled it all in After Effects back in the days when it took forever just to render a single scene. It's just like kind of mind-blowing when I look back on it now. It's like it's a pretty sophisticated piece of film for 1999 technology. There's a James Tucker shot. I designed a bunch of stuff. So it was definitely a collaboration.
That shot of Batman standing and he turns with the Jokers, that's an action figure that Bruce like kit bashed into Batman Beyond. It's on like a little Lazy Susan kind of thing. Bruce kind of moved the camera and rotated it, and it's just two pieces of artwork that are doing this as the Batman is rotating in the center.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
That shot of Bruce Wayne that everybody thinks is CG, that's literally a sculpture. It's a 3D sculpture. I stuck that literally on a Lazy Susan on my kitchen table and spun it around and shot it with my home video camera. Darwin took that image and digitized it, and it gives it that weird kind of CG kind of look.
In a lot of ways, it's really low tech, but I think everyone thinks it's really high tech.
The show was coming together, mixing the demands of the network with solutions that made the concept more and more intriguing to the creative team. The idea that nobody wanted to make was sounding better all the time. To them. But what about the fans?
Exactly.
From the minute we announced the show was going to happen, all of our fans were just like, they already wrote it off. They were just like, oh my God, this sounds horrible. This is going to be terrible. Teenage Batman. It's going to be for kids.
If keeping the continuity from their previous shows was important, keeping the audience from those shows was crucial. They had a lot to prove right out of the gate, and to do that, they had to start with a bang. The series premiere features an aging Batman in the year 2019. While trying to stop a kidnapping, Bruce grabs a gun as a last resort. The act of desperation convinces him to retire the Dark Knight.
Never again. The first two-parter, everything about that show is so much more adult and darker and uglier than pretty much anything we had done in any of our shows up until that point. So it was kind of like, we knew that when we had that shot of Batman, retiree age Batman, pointing a gun at a criminal, we knew that was like the best way to like slap those guys upside the head and say, nope, this is a good show and you're going to love it.
The story jumps ahead 20 years from there, and Neo Gotham has risen.
That shit hit crazy when he tells that story of why he's retired and everything. And finally, he wasn't becoming Batman anymore. He wasn't able to be Batman.
Terry McGinnis is attacked by the Joker's street gang, only to be saved by an elderly Bruce Wayne. Terry soon discovers the old man used to be Batman, and after Terry's father is killed by the Jokers as retaliation, Bruce offers to train him to become the new Batman Gotham needs. As the show premiered, even with the banger of an opening, the response wasn't exactly positive at first.
It wasn't overnight by any means, and it was all hate at first. By the end of our first season, people were begrudgingly going, oh, okay.
And yet, by August 2000, Warner Brothers Pictures had hired Remember the Titans director Boaz Yakin to make a live-action adaptation of Beyond. Batman Beyond co-creators Paul Dini and Alan Burnett were even hired to co-write the film. And while the project ultimately stalled, it's clear that studio execs saw the appeal the character had to fans. After 3 seasons and 1 feature...
I even saw something that recently that they were supposed to do a, like, Into the Spider-Verse styled Batman Beyond. See if I can find those pictures for that, but it looked crazy, like some of the stock images, I think it was, if they're real.
Film, the series came to an end in December of 2001. Nearly 4 years later, what was essentially the series finale of Batman Beyond aired on Justice League Unlimited. The episode Epilogue retconned, using some serious superhero science, that Bruce Wayne was actually Terry McGinnis' father. However, beyond that, there has been no real movement on a possible Batman Beyond revival, but fans keep asking anyway.
Wait, what was that?
Later, 1 feature came to an end. After 3 seasons and 1 feature film, the series came to an end in December of 2001. Nearly 4 years later, what was essentially the series finale of Batman Beyond aired on Justice League Unlimited. The episode Epilogue retconned, using some serious superhero science, that Bruce Wayne was actually Terry McGinnis' father. However, beyond that, there has been no real movement on a possible Batman Beyond revival, but fans keep asking anyway.
I get that a lot from people these days, like, oh, when are you guys going to bring back TAS? Or when are you going to do more Batman Beyond? It's just kind of like, well, you know, it's always tempting to go back to those worlds. But at the same time, it's also kind of like, oh, man, you don't want to go back and screw the pooch. You know, you don't want to, like, disappoint people with, you know, they have so many high expectations for those shows. At the same time, if I got a really good opportunity to do something more in those worlds, I probably would not be able to resist the temptation to do it.
Despite its unlikely origin as a project nobody wanted, today Batman Beyond is a beloved part of the DC animated universe. And that means something different for everyone involved in the creation of the show. But one thing seems to be true for all of them. It validated their commitment to taking a big risk.
At first, it was something we were dreading, and then it became something we really got into and loved. And we thought of it as something where we were actually contributing to the Batman mythos, something unique, something that didn't exist before.
The network wanted a new Batman, a teenage Batman, like Buffy, only from the future. Bruce Timm and his team didn't even want to make the show at first. It was an idea beyond saving, they thought. But the more they worked on it, the more they came to love the concept, as did the fans. A teenage future Batman with old Bruce Wayne as his mentor? Hell yeah. In the years since the show went off the air, Terry McGinnis has persisted in comics, games, and of course on DVD, Blu-ray, and streaming. And with the constantly changing state of the DC films, games, and of In the years since the show went off the air, Terry McGinnis has persisted in comics, games.
I mean, that was just the skin, right? He wasn't in any of the Arkham games.
And of course on DVD, Blu-ray, and streaming. And with the constantly changing state of the DC film universe, the future of Batman Beyond is always filled with hope.
This is unbearably cool.
Bravo, heck yeah. That was Batman Beyond, the classic nobody wanted. IGN Inside Stories. UIGN. Oh my god. Yeah, so I did know that it took, I mean, I knew that it was original story and everything, but to find out that, yeah, they were pretty much Frankenstein and this shit at the rip, and didn't really have anything said. I mean, obviously they had the continuity of the original show, but like they also wanted to make, you know, more original characters versus, you know, making New Age Mr. Freeze or New Age Penguin and all that. They wanted to have like their own originals and everything, which they did. And like to find out that they just had that melting pot going on of just throw the creators in a room and just, yeah, okay, get at it. Do what you can. And everybody's just, okay, I did this, what can you do with that? Or okay, with this I do that, so you do this. And it comes out so beautifully. And like I said, I'm not surprised to hear that when it first dropped, it was met with some flack. But at the time, I feel like it's like early internet age. So like you people weren't as like, it wasn't the age of like social media and all that, where like you get those like mass ridiculous statements of like people being up in arms or whatnot. So I feel like it was easier for people to like accept that change eventually once it, especially after the first season got through. Because shows that people don't fuck with nowadays, if they don't fuck with the first season, that it's not getting more in most cases. So it's still to see that it lasted the length it did. Because yeah, Batman Beyond, oh my god. Since we already looked at the other ones, let's compare the intro to the original. So 90s. Like this is very 90s, early 2000s. Yeah, all the mixed media they were talking about. To find out, so that's a three. What do you say? A 3D statue that he had at home. He just put it on a little, um, a little spinning thing on his in his living room and just recorded that. Like all the mixed media is insane. Same with like one of the shots for that one is apparently just an action figure that he has on a spinner, and then there's like two pieces of artwork between them that they have also rotating like in the opposite way. That's fire, because it's like I mean there might be some early CGI here, but that's what I always thought was it was like early CGI. So hard. Fantastic. All right. So that was the Batman Beyond, the classic that nobody wanted. Well, and that there, YouTube. Good y'all.